All right. What up, Yang Gang? Welcome back. And tonight we have another one of the No Dens Left Behind people that was name dropped by Richard Ojeda in our last live. Allie Dalsimore in Virginia's 11th district running for Congress. Welcome down, Allie.
Thank you so much, boy, sir. Excited to be here.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, she's been on several other interviews on podcasts and YouTube channels. She has a link to all of her interviews on her website. Just want to give you guys a heads up right there. But yeah, so first and foremost, what inspired you to throw your name in the hat to run for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 11th district?
Yeah, thanks. It's funny because I get asked that question and it's never easy to answer because it was such a roller coaster ride to make that decision. If anybody's ever thought about running for office or done it, it's not an easy decision. It's not something you take on lightly. And there were a couple different moments. As for those who are familiar with my story, I had worked for the Department of Defense managing their natural resources program and spent my career working on natural resources. And the Trump administration was not terribly pro-environment and eliminated my position shortly after I really pushed through a climate guide. So I sort of won the battle but lost the war on that one. And then I proceeded to watch everything that administration did to roll back so much of the advancements that we had made, and realizing it was just going to take forever, and feeling frustrated by the fact that policies we had put in place could just be wiped out like that by laws, and realizing that to make a real difference, to make a lasting difference, I had to do something that was more legislatively oriented. And I was actually talking with my son, and I was just like, what can I do to make a difference? And we were shortly after we were watching Knock Down the House, and he turned, which is the Netflix special that follows several women in their bid for Congress, including AOC, Cori Bush, Amy Villela, and Paula Jean Swearengin. And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, you need to run for Congress." And that was the spark. That was when I first started really thinking about it and considering it. We started doing a lot of research, talking to other candidates, really trying to figure out what was going on, started looking into the incumbent's record, realizing that what he says and how he votes do not align a lot of the time, which was actually a shock for me. I've voted for the man for the last decade because he's been the only one running pretty much until the last cycle, when we voted for a person who was challenging him. We did reach out to her as well, named Zainab Mohseni. She was not going to run again. And so I was edging towards it. And then the final straw, and when I was like, you know what, we're doing this, was watching the news one night. And I've talked about this, watching the news, and the newscaster, there'd just been a story about COVID and people losing their homes and losing their jobs and waiting in food lines. And the next story was Jerry Connolly holds up the HEROES Act for 48 hours so he can add $1 billion rider to benefit companies that profit from war so that they can pay for their corporate headquarters, executive bonuses, whatever. And that was it for me. That was the final straw. I was like, that's absurd. That man is putting corporate interests above the people, not only of this district, but of the whole nation. And that was it. And I threw in my hat and we went full tilt on it.
That sounds like a pretty heavy straw that landed too. Let's be honest. That would infuriate most people. And that one, I couldn't imagine teetering on a decision and seeing that and be like, that's it. Lights, camera, action. Let's go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have someone who lives in your district in here, thankfully.
Wonderful. Excellent.
That's awesome.
Oh, Neil Glazer. I think I recognize that name.
But the big thing is you're running against a Democrat.
Yes.
As a Democrat. And so what differentiates you from him as an incumbent? Why should people choose you over him?
That's an excellent
Democratic
question.
voters.
Yeah. So I'd like to point out that Joe Manchin also is a Democrat. And Jerry Connolly's voting record is about 2% more liberal than Joe Manchin's. So
Just
There are all stripes of Democrats.
just a
The
smidge.
biggest difference, yeah, the biggest difference, honestly, is that I'm not taking any corporate PAC or dark monies. So I don't have any disincentives to represent the people.
Yeah.
Connolly is in the top 10 for taking money from companies that profit from war. He takes money from telecommunications and etc. And then he turns around and votes in ways that benefit those corporate interests over the interests of the people, despite the fact that what he says sounds like he is supporting the people. For example,
Mhm.
he has talked a lot about how he supports the right of everyone to vote, and he signed on to HR 1. But when you look at it, he actually voted against both Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley's amendments. So he is definitely in support of people to vote, except for some people who he doesn't think should vote. But he never says that. And that's kind of typical of how he operates, and I think is the biggest single difference between um, between the two of us.
Well, he sounds like a seasoned snake of a politician that does whatever it takes to look good on paper and still represent the people that donate the biggest money to him as corporate donors.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's possibly true. And, maybe things changed. He is a career politician. He started with the Board of Supervisors and became the head of the Board of Supervisors. Then he ran for Congress. That seems to be what people do. So he's been in politics for his entire adult
yeah.
life, basically, except a brief stint where he worked for Leidos, who now is also one of his donors and with whom he invests. Um, but I never envisioned myself as having a career in politics, and um, I think that fact alone is another difference. And you're right in terms of the corporate politician thing. I mean, that's what he wants to do. This is his life, and he's gonna stay in office, and he wants to stay in office, and he's gonna come across as I'm just the best guy ever, and don't look too deep. And it's interesting because people believe it. People in his district believe it. People who have been with him since he was, a brand new person in the Board of Supervisors, and they've been with him for
Mhm.
30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell people that the person that they knew as a young, idealistic, whatever person is not actually the person that he still is, because he has definitely changed,
Well,
and is is much more interested in, I think personally, just the power of the office.
well, and that's that slimy film that gets on you. When you get in there too long, it just becomes a thicker film. Um, it becomes murky, and ideological people just become chewed up in this machine of politics. So the longer you stay, the slimier you appear to be.
Hmm.
Do you
So
support term limits?
yeah, so a couple different things. I think that that's probably, it's the 80-20 rule, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's probably true 80% of the time. But you look at someone like Bernie Sanders, been around a
Yeah,
long time, and he's still pretty true to form. And then you look
yeah.
at others, and I won't name names, people who've gotten in recently who came in on a more
Mhm,
progressive ticket, who seem to be morphing and changing. Um,
mhm,
in terms of term limits themselves, I actually do support term limits. I think that we need term limits not only for politicians but for judges,
mm.
and I think that we need to really take a close look at the Supreme Court as well. And I don't know, man. I feel like if there was a level, well, here's the thing though, right? If there was a true level playing field and there was no advantage to being an incumbent, would you need term limits? I don't know. Because if you didn't have to raise money and you didn't do things that supported your donors, and everybody was given some sort of flat amount of funding or airtime or whatever it worked
Mhm,
out to be, whatever that answer is, and you could genuinely run on your record and people could see what you've done and they could see what the
mhm.
alternatives were, maybe term limits become moot. I don't know. I generally support term limits, but then, of course, like I just said, that would have meant Bernie Sanders would be out. And,
Right.
I think he's done a lot, if nothing else, but to bring in Medicare for all. That
Mhm.
was not on the horizon on anybody's lips or discussion before 2016. And also, you have people like Barbara Lee, who's been in there forever and who was the lone voice voting against going to Afghanistan 20 years ago, and who is still putting out amazing legislation. So I don't know, it's a tough thing, but I think that if it were truly fair, free, and open campaigning, that term limits might or might not be
Right.
necessary. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you had, like, I am 100% pro public funding to get out the dark money. And I think there should be no corporate PAC money. There should be no lobbyists. I was looking at your policy page about the reforms of you can't be a lobbyist if you're a congressperson, and you can't be a congressperson, lose or retire, then go into lobbying.
Right.
I think you had a time limit of 7 years, you said, for that window. Like, that's something we can think about, but I think it should be forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to choose. Are you a cop or a robber type of thing, right? Who are
Yeah.
you?
Right.
You can't play both, and it's very rare you see a person get out of jail and go become a police officer, right? So now the other way around, it happens. A lot of crooks. But anyway, yeah, I like the idea of publicly funded, because if you had publicly funded, you can actually allocate resources to local stations too, to say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to give you money to run these ads back to back so people can see them. So at 5 o'clock on 5 p.m. Monday morning, or whatever time it might be, everybody will know it's coming. They want to get up to date information. It's at 5 o'clock. At 6 p.m., right before the news, there's going to be a 20-minute run of 5-minute segments where you get to say your town hall speech, if you will, and say, this is what I stand for. This is what I'm against. This is what I stand for. This is what I'm against. And it's like, not a debate, but you are get people a comparison, and it's free information for the people.
It would also be nice if they required everything to be fact checked. So you don't have a situation like Nina Turner faced, where you have lies being spread and not enough time to react to them to tell the truth. I think that, and in fact, more broadly speaking, and this is a little off topic, but I actually think that to be called news, you have to tell facts. And if you're not telling facts, that you should be called entertainment. The Fox Entertainment Channel, for example, or even the MSNBC Entertainment Channel, because there's a lot of bias in their reporting. And I think that if you're going to have true news, it should be unbiased.
Yeah. That's why I started the Trickle Up, which is right over your head there, is independent media from just everyday people.
Yeah.
With regular people who have a passion for something. And because we don't trust them anymore. We can't trust them. They're being paid just like politicians. They're no different. They're being paid to say certain things and not mention other things.
Right.
With the recent passing, I'm just going to say, with the recent passing of Norm Macdonald, it brings up an old thing about how Saturday Night Live fired him because one of the executives of Saturday Night Live was a friend of O.J. Simpson. And he wouldn't stop talking about it. So they fired him. And it's just a microcosm of what the problem is, where, who was it? When Cenk Uygur worked at MSNBC, they got rid of him because he was critical of Hillary Clinton, and all the Clintons and all the, everyone. And so they don't want certain things being said because they're paid not to. They're actors. They're not even like true journalists. It's not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
There's definitely a corporate bias because so many of them are, the media station. I'm sure you know this. The media stations, all the main media stations, are owned by the same 5 corporations. So, they're all about making a profit through advertising, and they want to tell stories that are going to attract viewers so they can sell them products. So, I also personally think that independent media like the Trickle Up, and other shows, there's been there are a number of them, really should get public funding. There's no reason that the government can't put some small amount of money into trying to share the truth with the American people. I think that just makes sense. So
that's a tricky one.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, and it wouldn't be just to progressive news outlets. If you have conservative news outlets, provided that they're providing a platform that is unbiased and just speaking truths, or if you're putting it out as opinion, that really is the backbone of information sharing, and should be the backbone for decision making on politics and policies. Because it's because you're not trying to make sure that you get your Nike commercial in, right? You're just trying to provide a platform so that people can present, in this case, who the candidate for Virginia's 11th congressional district is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to share with you guys a good place to go if you want to look up dirt on a politician, which is what most of them have. Right, let me take this banner down. So this is opensecrets.org. You type in a representative and it shows you their donors. So 2021 to 2022 is retired, whatever the hell that means, and then miscellaneous defense contractors, and then top contributors, Leidos, which is military, Granite Telecom, which is communications, and it just kind of breaks it all down. This is what she's up against, guys. $3.34 million in his hands.
And Connolly used to work for Leidos, and he actually so Leidos used to work for Leidos for a short time, and Leidos, as you pointed out, is one of his biggest investors, and he actually owns quite a bit of stock. So they win, he wins, and it's this nice like circular kind of thing that goes on. So shockingly, he supports every DoD budget increase, every expansion of the DoD's mission parameters, votes for every war. It benefits his biggest benefactor, and it benefits his pocket directly.
Yeah, and I think on your website here, let's go to your website here. You have a list of all your stuff, alphabetical order, nice and easy to find. Election reform. Is that where you have your thing about?
I haven't posted that yet, so we're currently drafting it. Okay. And we sort of
just go ahead and share it here about the reform you want to close that door on investments.
So we're working on drafting a conflicts of interest bill, which if elected, I will put in day one, and it has 4 tenets. And the first is that ideally the goal would be to eliminate all corporate funding. It's going to have to happen in a stepwise process, right? Because there's too many Congress people who are invested in that system.
Yeah.
So this would be what I consider an interim step that could help bring that about. And the first thing is they would have to identify all sources of funding so that dark monies that are submitted through these major PACs, and you get tens and hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars submitted through PACs, would have to be clearly identified. Second, if a representative received money from a company within an industry, they would be precluded from being able to vote on legislation that impacted that industry. And what that means is, so for example, some congressperson gets money from AT&T, and then there's a bill that would affect the telecommunications industry. They would not be allowed to vote on that. They would have to recuse themselves and not be allowed to vote on that. The third thing is that they would not be allowed to, once they left once they're still in Congress, they would not be allowed to invest in those companies. You cannot actively invest in companies from which you are receiving money. So looking at Congressman Connolly, he invests in Leidos, and Leidos is one of his biggest contributors. That, to me, is a conflict of interest. And then the final thing is, once a representative leaves office, they would not be able to turn around and go to work for these companies and then come back and lobby the representatives who are still there in Congress. I mean, that's something that happens now. They literally, retire on a Friday, and Monday they go to work for a corporation. Tuesday they're back in lobbying their former colleagues. And I think that that's wrong. And I don't know what the time frame is on that. Maybe for life, as you said. But I think that what's important is we need to make sure that that we're making, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. So we need to make sure that we're removing any sort of perverse incentives or conflicts of interest from the from a representative's ability to vote on a bill, if that makes sense. So basically, you'd end up right now, I think, with bills coming to the floor and having about 6 people being able to vote on them because there's so much corruption.
Well, that's exactly what my point was going to be when you finished up was, so then that means when you have a military spending, 80% of Congress can't even vote.
Possibly, if that's how many. I don't know those stats. I don't know how many take money from companies that profit from war, but I'm sure it is a lot. And yes, that's exactly what it would mean. But you know what else that would mean? That would mean that the decision on whether or not to vote yes on that bill would be entirely 100% free of any sort of perverse incentive. You could just look
Yes.
at the facts, see what the people are asking for, see what the global situation is. I mean, this is a very highly
Yeah.
situational topic, but you could make a decision based on actual facts and
Mhm.
not whether or not some company that's going to make lots of money, you know, manufacturing Humvees would be able to do it. And actually, there's another thing um, that I've been thinking of, and we might include, and I'm just not sure how it'll work yet. But companies in general who make military gear and weaponry and equipment um, often also make gear and equipment and whatever for non-military purposes. And I think that if a company wants to make an aircraft for civilian use, they should be able to do that. They should be able to make profit on that,
Mhm.
etc. If they want to make that basically whatever an aircraft for military use, I do not think they should be able to make a profit on that. I don't think they should lose money on it. But if they're
Mhm.
going to make an F-35 or whatever, I think that they should do it at cost, whatever at cost is, because I don't think anyone should profit from war. War should not be a money-making industry.
Mhm.
Um, and the next step on that is if a company's not making a profit, then their investors aren't making a dividend or a profit from that particular product.
Right.
So, again, going back to members of Congress having investments in companies that are benefiting from their legislative decisions. So I haven't really gotten fully into how I want to think about that or how I want to incorporate it, if I want to incorporate it in the conflicts of interest bill.
Mhm. What I like about that is it's kind of your own. It's just a way of chipping away at Citizens United.
Yeah.
Because if I owned a defense contract business and I was going to go buy you off pretty much with lobbying, bribe you, but then you can't vote for me, then
Right.
I won't be incentivized to donate to you. So it kind of cuts the return of investment on dark money, if you will.
Yes, it does.
And then they can't vote. There's no point in donating to them if you can't vote. That's the whole point. You want them to vote for you. Um, Yeah, I like that. And then the turnabout of Congress to lobbying back and forth. I think it should be at least 2 election cycles. You know what I mean? Like if I was to put it in terms, I'd say at least 8 to 12 years. Give them a full administration separation where you're not literally have working relationship with these people directly, benefiting each other for at least a full couple of terms. Like if you have a whole presidency, 2 terms, that's at least 8 years.
Yeah, it is.
You
Yeah, I
know,
like that. Maybe that's the answer.
yeah, that way, whatever it is should be a 4 year increment to say a full election cycle. Boom, boom,
Mhm.
boom. And if you're a senator, then it's 6 year election
Right.
cycles. You get voted every 6 years, which I think is silly too. Why are they 6 and everybody else is 4? Doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
But yeah, we got a lot of reforms we need to do here. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, and where did the election reforms? Now I know the big one for you is the environment.
Right.
And so what would be your, if you could write the first bill about the environment, what would that look like? Because this is probably your most thorough one I like. Because you have the Virginia Green New Deal, which is different. So I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, the Virginia Green New Deal actually includes a lot of what was listed below there, which is, um, the green jobs, environmentally friendly uh, transportation, having a green electrical grid, getting rid of coal, banning fracking, all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's most important about the environmental one is I actually have been pleasantly surprised with Biden's infrastructure plan, because the reality is that that if we can get that passed, it's going to benefit a lot of people. It's going to bring in the training and the jobs and the infrastructure grid, and transition away from coal. It's probably not perfect, but it's better than I thought was going to come out of administration.
Right.
And I think that it's basically a good start. So for me, the environment piece that's missing is there's not currently a single environmental professional serving in Congress. I have 22 years of environmental policy experience. And it's interesting when I listen to some of these congressmen and even some of the people who are running for Congress talk about what they want to do and how they want to do it. I don't think they understand the implications of what it means to implement those policies. And I'll be honest with you. I think one of the reasons that we are in the incredible mess we're in with these huge wildfires, I'm sure you know that
Hmm.
I think it's 10 out of the 11 largest wildfires in California have occurred within the last year. The New York subway flooded, Germany flooded.
Twice.
Um, yeah, twice.
New York flooded twice.
People are dying, right? People are dying, and it's
Mhm.
costing billions of dollars. And the reality is that legislators have ignored policymakers and environmental policy experts for decades.
Mhm.
And all of everything that's happening is everything that we've been saying is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that if we'd had even one actual scientist in Congress to be a voice of reason and say, wait a minute, you cannot keep subsidizing fossil fuels. You cannot keep subsidizing, coal. You cannot keep subsidizing huge agribusiness monocultures that are destroying the soil and depleting the nutrients and releasing carbon. You cannot subsidize industries that are resulting in huge negative impacts for our environment. If you'd had even
Mhm.
just one voice that had knowledge behind it, maybe we
Yeah.
wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. But we are in the situation we're in now. We've missed the window for reversing climate change. What we need to do now is act very aggressively
Yeah.
to tackle the climate crisis so that we can slow or stop it.
Yeah. Just curb
That's the
it.
best we can hope
Mhm.
for.
Well, let's talk. I want to talk about your pedigree too, because you do list your pedigree here, and I think it's worth mentioning that you do come from actual environmental. So you went to Georgetown University, the master's in public policy, environmental law, and economics. That
Yes.
sounds like a damn good qualification.
Hmm.
And then you got a bachelor's in English and psychology, Phi Beta Kappa. Yeah, you're all about the environment, man. Field-based coursework. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the
Um,
thing, right? And I think that people sometimes don't understand this because climate change is the true intersectional issue, right? It underlies everything. It underlies the economy,
mhm.
underlies racial inequities, it underlies so much of what our
Health.
society is dealing with. And if we
Mhm.
can tackle it in a holistic way, from everything from, as I mentioned, farm subsidies to actual straight out fossil fuel implementation, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. We're gonna get to a lot of the issues that are facing society right now. Not
Yes.
all of them, but a lot of them.
I'm actually a little bit, I would say people consider it controversial because I'm actually pro nuclear when it comes to green energy.
Hmm.
Um, because it has zero emissions.
Right,
The only bad part is the waste product. Um,
right.
but do you know anything about thorium reactors?
I don't know anything about thorium reactors, but I want to take a step back to
Yeah.
nuclear reactors.
Mhm.
And I I had I've looked into this, and I get the arguments on both sides. My concern with the nuclear option, especially coming out of the last administration, and especially, I got to tell you, I was in DOD for the first part of that administration, and military leaders were scared. They they
Oh
were
yeah.
scared
Mhm.
because Trump was clinically a narcissist, and he
Still
had
is.
nuclear codes.
Yes.
So I actually, and he's not the only leader, right? Like, I understand the arguments that, there's this sort of mutually assured destruction and other countries are developing nuclear weapons. And should we really take a step back and all these other things? I understand that it's hard to verify and complicated to disarm and dismantle. And
Mhm.
then, of course, what do you do with the waste, right? We still don't know what to do with, burying it in salt flats. Just can't be the solution forever.
Right.
But here's the problem with nuclear weaponry. Anytime we've gone to war, and the US is the only one that's dropped atomic bombs, anytime that we've done that, it's been a knee-jerk reaction. We don't think about these things, we just do it. And it's how we ended up in Afghanistan because, we were angry and we wanted to retaliate, and we, launched a war against a country that did not actually send any of the terrorists.
Right. Well,
Instead,
actually,
that would be Saudi Arabia, who we continue to partner with. But here's the problem, right? Like, if you drop a nuclear weapon in a populated city, you're going to kill millions of people.
No, I'm not talking about nuclear weapons, though. No.
Oh, you're talking about nuclear reactors.
Energy, yes.
Just energy. Oh, my bad.
Not nuking people. No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm saying green energy jobs is
green energy jobs. Yeah, nuclear. Nuclear power is clean energy. I don't know. The technology, though, can be transformed so easily, which is probably why I jumped ahead to the conflicts.
But that's why thorium reactors is.
Yeah, I don't know about those.
It's more stable.
Yeah.
And there's more plentiful. Like, to get to uranium-23 they need for the current reactors, you go through a layer of thorium to get to it. So it's less digging, less mining, less destructive, and there's plentiful. It's like I can't remember the numbers, like 10-to-1 amounts of thorium to uranium-23, and it is harder to make that into a weapon. It's almost not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like, it can be done, but it would take you so much resources to do that. It's cheaper just to go get uranium.
I'm so excited to hear about that.
Yeah, it's called thorium reactors. I actually did an interview with a guy.
I'll be looking into that. I might add it to my platform.
Well, I have a guy that I interviewed on here. His name's Ian Prado. He's called the Thorium Guy on Twitter. He's going to school. He's a physicist, and he went back to college to get his PhD now in nuclear thorium reactor technologies. Like, he wants to design the next one, because to me, that's how we lead the world forward. I'm thinking globally here on this to say, okay, right now China is putting in coal plants in Central Africa, in the Middle East. Well, because they offer something. They don't give a shit about the environment for some reason. And I think we can outcompete them with better technology, not by threatening them. The threat of war is not how you control people. You have to incentivize good behaviors.
Right.
So to me, if we can double down on thorium reactors, and the thing about thorium reactors, it can't melt down. If it gets kind of shaky, you can do a salt water flush, and it breaks the reaction up. It iodizes it, and it's over.
Are there thorium reactors in existence now already?
And conceptually, they were out back in the 50s and 60s when they built the other ones, right? But it's like the Edison versus whoever's light bulb type of thing. Like, we said, we're gonna go with this one,
Tesla,
because we wanted to make a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole Manhattan Project, right? So
Manhattan Project, yeah.
The thorium reactors, they're trying to work out a model that works at large scale. It can be done.
Exciting.
And so there's people that are actively doing that. So if we can be the leader of thorium reactors and literally give them away to other countries, instead of donating all this money, give them a new reactor in, let's say, the Congo, put a thorium reactor right there and have enough energy for the entire country, because they don't use as much electricity as we do yet.
Right.
So in a place like that, thorium reactors would be huge.
Yeah.
Give everyone a stable power grid, access to cleaning their water, to, like, electricity is a huge thing for human rights, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I'm a little more controversial, saying I'm pro-nuclear, as far as that is our, like, I'd like to go 100% renewables, but we need to have a stopgap in between.
Yeah, I like this. I'm going to look into thorium reactors. I really had not known about it. I appreciate you bringing it up. So, interestingly, I lived in the Congo, so it's interesting you would mention that.
Well, and Neil actually mentioned something in the comments here. It's a very good point. I think it's also worth mentioning. Thorium is in Afghanistan. So there's another reason to go blow up another country full of people that are poor, right? That's the problem too, is those minerals, the resources.
Yeah, the resources.
Thorium and lithium is heavily in Afghanistan's mountains.
Yeah, I'm familiar with lithium. Yeah.
Yeah, so lithium is in everything we use that we're on right now. It's
You
a
made
whole
one
lot of
comment I wanted to circle back to
yeah.
about China and their production and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people don't know this, but nearly 50% of China's output is directly for US import. So who's really responsible for China's pollution?
Our consumption.
Our consumption.
Yeah, our
Yeah,
consumption. We're a country of consumers, not producers.
that's right.
And there we go, right? So that's a very good point to bring up. But I've just we got a lot of issues, right?
But there's a lot of really smart people all over the world working together, and I would like to see more global cooperation among not just politicians and legislators, but scientists and whatever. I mean, I really think there's a lot of power and collaboration. I
Mhm.
was a little, I don't know if I should raise this. I was a little concerned with this AUKUS that Biden has announced with the Australian,
Oh, yep,
UK, US thing, because to
yep.
me it kind of smacks of let's get ready for World War III. I'm very concerned by it.
Yeah,
I
it
think
screws France.
yeah, it excludes well, what it does is it sets up an us versus them, which is
Mhm.
concerning to me, especially since I feel like globally we seem to be right at a pivot point of either moving forward collaboratively or falling into more of a tribalistic
Yep.
kind of
A
society.
lateral
And
shift.
I really, really think we need to push into that collaborative global, we are one planet, one people.
Mhm.
And yet we see what's going on at the border with the Haitians, which is just
Oh man, yeah.
horrific. I mean, just
Mhm.
absolutely horrific and not what our country was founded on. And then we have this AUKUS, and then we have, it's just, I just am very concerned. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I appreciate some of the good intentions behind some
Yeah.
of the movements, but I really think we need to take a step back and really think big picture here, you
Well,
know?
people are saying why are people from Haiti running to the southern border? It's because they're not paying attention to the absolute destruction of that island, man. They've
So
had some
here's the
serious
problem. Here's
problems.
the problem. And I when I've talked with people in district, you can always tell who actually just watches whatever the media is they're watching and
Yeah,
who actually watches world news.
right.
Right? You have to watch something that comes from another country. You
Mhm.
have to watch the BBC or Al Jazeera or
Al
even
Jazeera.
AP or something. You
Mhm.
have to actually watch some sort of news that provides a third party perspective on the globe, because the US is completely solipsistic. They're completely self
Yeah.
absorbed and only care about what's going on within the US. And they think
Mhm.
that's all there is. And anybody who's confused about why Haitians are at the border is just not informed about the fact that their country
Mhm.
has fallen apart and the US has done nothing to help them. They've had earthquakes, they've had um, huge
Yes.
tropical storms. Their president was,
And a coup.
assassinated. They've got
Yes.
they've
Mhm.
got rampant crime. It's a dangerous place, and finding food and even safe shelter
Mhm.
is impossible. And I cannot believe we're just turning them out and whipping them from horses and then putting them
Man.
on planes and sending them back. It's appalling. This is
Yes.
the antithesis of, give us your tired and your poor,
That's
you're
right.
hungry, because this is your huddled masses, because they are huddled masses and we need to be accepting them with open arms and doing everything we can to care for them.
What option do they have? Is what I tell people. If you were in Haiti or any other country remotely close to the US and your children were not safe, fed, or housed or healthy, and you have no means to help them, I can only imagine how small I would feel as a parent.
Yeah,
Because I got 4 kids, I would feel uh, ineffective and insignificant. I would do whatever it took to get my butt across that border
yeah,
and say, I beg for mercy. You can send me back. Please keep my children. Like that's what's happening.
right.
Yeah, I'm more pro immigrant because we just covered this article yesterday. Alabama, for the first time in recorded history in the United States, at least in our census, has a increased number of deaths versus birth rate. They're
Right.
shrinking, and that's happening in 20 states right now. So we need immigrants. We need them.
Yeah.
We need more people to come here and help contribute hopefully to a better system. And our system's failing us.
Our entire society,
Mhm.
Native Americans aside, are all
Oof.
immigrants.
Yes.
So,
Oh, and excluding Hispanics, Mexicans as well, and Central Americans, they are Americans.
absolutely.
They're from South
Absolutely.
and Central America. They're from the Americas.
They're from the Americas.
I'm 100% immigrant. I've done the DNA. Like
Right.
I'm an import.
Right.
Um, and to
My
say,
mom's first generation, so I'm right there with you.
oh yeah, where'd your mom come from?
She came from the UK. My
Okay,
grandfather was Welsh and my grandmother was Scottish. And so she
gotcha.
came over when she was about 11 years old. He was a minister and he had a church that he
Yeah,
was given here.
yeah, and that's the thing. I'm pro immigration as far as you know. We need more access to immigration because I have friends that have went through the system and it's cost them $10,000-15,000 to do the system, and it takes them between 7 and 10 years.
That's a
No,
ridiculous barrier. That's
yeah,
an unnecessary. You can
mhm,
quickly do some sort of back. I mean, you don't want to let in organized
yeah, crime.
whatever the
Yeah.
crime are in different countries. I mean,
Mhm.
whether it's
MS-13, there's billions of them.
MS-13, Yakuza, whatever, that's such a minority but you can quickly find out if a person is, somebody coming over who's got two
Mhm,
little kids and they're clearly struggling.
mhm.
Why create a barrier to entry?
Well, here's my thing. If you come from a country like that and you have a dirty history or whatever you want to call it, like you judge them on it, would you? I would be that person too. I would do whatever it took, including crime. I would do that today.
Hmm.
If my kids are hungry and I got nothing, I'm going to Walmart and I'm snatching and grabbing. I'm
Yeah,
out of there. I'm feeding my kids. So that I always say this,
right.
I'm a felon that's never been caught. We all are. We've all had minor infractions that we just got away with. Like when I was in the military, drinking and driving. Are you kidding me? That was like a national pastime. That's all we did half the time. Not all of us, but
Thanks for
like
sharing.
yeah. Those are the facts, man. I'm 100% transparent on these things, man. I've done things and not got caught, and other people have. That doesn't make me better than them because I got away with it.
No, that's true.
So I don't
But
judge
that's
people for
that's
their
also very different. I mean, it's not like I'm not talking about that kind of thing because
yeah.
I'm 100% with you on that. I'm talking
Mhm.
there's a very, very small percent. It's the whole Trump thing. They're all murderers and rapists, and they're
Yeah.
not,
Right.
right? They're just people.
Mhm.
Um, if you want to, anyway, we're not going to go there. But
Yeah.
I think what's really important, honestly, is that this entire nation was built on the backs of immigrants, whatever the next wave was, right? It was the Chinese, it was the Irish Americans, it was the Italian Americans, it was whoever it was, right? There was a wave after wave after wave of immigrants who came in, were assimilated, and once you assimilate an immigrant, guess what? You get to tax them, right? So, hey, there's
Yeah.
revenue for infrastructure or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think that the, creating an easy, inexpensive, and achievable pathway to citizenship is a
Mhm.
win-win all around.
Absolutely. You want people to assimilate?
Well, I didn't mean
Give them-
assimilate in terms of like
No, no, no.
becoming.
That's what some people want. You're not really
Oh,
an American, blah blah blah. Well, give them an avenue to call themselves an American. Let them
yeah,
become a citizen.
right,
That incentivizes
right.
assimilation as
When I
far as
say
like
assimilate, I just mean become a citizen.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
that's what I
mean
mean
I
too by
don't
it. I
mean
don't it's a loose term, but
Yeah, it's a
um,
loose term. Yeah, definitely. No, because I think that's what's really nice. So, like right in our neighborhood, we live in a very multicultural district. In fact, my kids go to a high school it used to be the most culturally diverse school in the country. I think it's now third in
okay.
the nation. And there are 172 different nationalities
Wow.
and um, over 100 different languages spoken,
That's
and it's awesome. It's just awesome, and everybody maintains their cultural identity, but they all are friends, and they're all, like you said, Americans.
right.
Some of them wear hijabs and some of them wear like little skimpy halter tops. It's whatever. It's an accepting, open environment. And I feel very blessed that my children have been able to attend that school. But I really would like to see that happen all across the country,
Mm-hmm.
where people can just represent and be who they are and still be
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah. Well, like my girlfriend is a teacher, and the school she teaches at is a Seventh-day Adventist school.
Hmm.
So it's very multicultural. And at her son's graduation, they had flags of all the countries of all the students, origin of uh, family of origin. And my girlfriend's family is from Uganda, so it's really
Mhm.
awesome to see them say, okay, even the little tiny country of Uganda has a flag here, and so does Rwanda, so
Wow.
does yada 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 yada. And there's
Mhm.
like dozens of them. And
Yeah.
everybody came over after graduation and held their flag out, and said, "Hey, man, we did it." Like, so I'm 100% on board with that because,
Yeah.
like I said, we need immigrants. We need diversity. It makes this place awesome. Just
Yeah.
like you said, the huddled masses, man. We need
I agree. I
immigrants of
agree.
all social, economical backgrounds, whatever it is, man. Just come on.
Right. Yeah, it's the old quote, which I'm not going to say right, but travel is fatal to prejudice and bigotry because it opens your mind, right? And
Mm,
it's interesting that the people who are the most hate filled, it really comes from ignorance, right? They
yes.
don't know,
100%.
or they aren't exposed to other cultures, or they haven't traveled, or they haven't done whatever.
Mhm.
And so they are ignorant or just don't know about other cultures, and that makes them afraid, and that fear then gets turned into hatred, and that hatred becomes violence. So I
Yeah.
think the more we can do to broaden people's minds and people are just people, right? I mean,
Mhm.
people are just people. So it's just whatever we're packaged up in is
Yeah.
you know
It's like I'm a big Bruce Lee fan. I
oh
thought he
yeah,
was
me
he was
too.
great, and I love this quote or a moment in an interview from his documentary where the guy goes, "Do you identify more as a Chinese American or just an American?" And he goes, "I identify as a human."
As a human,
And I was
yes,
like, "Bruce Lee, you're the freaking guy, dude." And
yes.
that was back in the 50s
60s.
and
60s.
60s.
Those
Yeah,
early
yeah.
60s, yeah. Because
Like,
that was the same documentary. I love that documentary. It's so good. I've watched it a couple times, where he like comes out and he's on the show, where he's the Green Hornet, and
mhm,
he's the chauffeur, and he comes out and he stands, and there's some like executive business guy, some old white guy standing there, and he throws him the keys and he's like, "Get me my car." Right. And so he was like, all right. So he went and he got him his car and brought it to him. And then of
mhm.
course the actual valet comes and is like, "Oh, Mr. Lee, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And but he had an amazing capacity for just, letting it go, and not letting people, he talks about not letting people get into your headspace, because that gives them control over you, and just
Yeah,
going with the flow and being the water over the rock, and not being, impacted by those obstacles. And I think there's so much that we can learn from that as a society and as people.
absolutely. I used to have a shirt in the military. It's worn out and had holes in it, is like be like water.
Yeah.
And him having that shit eating grin. He says, be like water, my friend. And I had a picture of him like with that grin on his face. It's like,
Yeah.
what a cool shirt. I had to have it.
Hmm.
But it was white and it got all yellow and dingy from hard water. Um, uh, um, so another thing on your page I want
Yeah.
to talk about was women's rights, because that's a big thing right now with the whole SCOTUS and these different states making a real push at getting rid of women's autonomy.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate. I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, so I will fight about this one. I do fight. Actually, I argue with people all the time about it. But like I was looking at your policy page on that earlier, and you definitely go into it about some good statistics. Um, and that's what it comes down to is social economic.
Yep.
And equal pay through the Fairness Act. I like that. And the Violence Against Women Act. Yeah, there's so many things like the Hyde Amendment. I'm I'm scared for my daughters that they're going to lose their autonomy if we don't make a serious course correction right now. There's an iceberg and we're on that Titanic.
I
I
agree.
feel like we're asleep at the wheel on this. To me, this country's 50-50 male female. and our Congress doesn't reflect that.
No, it doesn't. We're actually a little bit more women than men. I think it's
Yeah,
51-49. And the
it is.
reality is that the ultra right wing conservative Dems have spent literally decades stacking the courts. They've had a long term plan
Mhm.
to overturn Roe v. Wade that they have been pursuing since the 80s and certainly early 90s.
Well, since it
And
went into law.
they've been successful. Well, it went into law in 73, right? Something
Before
like
I was
anyway.
born. Yep. Hmm.
But it really started it all started with the whole Newt Gingrich and the moral majority, which was neither, and
Yep.
the whole Tea Party. But that was when they began formulating a strategic plan for how to address what they saw as the as the I don't know what the word is, the ills that are facing our society, right?
Yeah.
And part of that had to do with overturning Roe v. Wade and figuring out how to do that. They tried the Hyde Amendment,
Hmm.
but they also started stacking the courts. And the goal was to get to the Supreme Court, and they've done that,
Hmm.
right? They've been working on a dedicated plan to do that. And I think we really need to look at the whole Supreme Court situation. It's interesting because you mentioned women rights and representation. And I'll just say this as an aside. I don't know if you know this, but in the DC metro area, we have 9 congressional representatives, with sort of Southern Maryland and Northern Virginia. There are 9 of them, and there's only one woman. That's
There's one running. Her name's Reverend Wendy Hamilton.
Well, Michaela Wilkes is running, and I'm running, so we'll hopefully get more in. But I just,
Yeah.
as an aside, but
Yeah.
going back to the thing, I mean, what we've seen in Texas and Louisiana, Missouri, I mean, these are things that have been in the works and in the plan for a long time. And what's sad about it is these are templates, and conservatives are like, this is a template. You can do this now in your state. And I have a daughter as well. She just turned
Mhm.
17 yesterday, and I'm super concerned
Mm.
whether or not she's going to have the freedom to be the person she needs to be. And the irony, of course, is, I'm sure we've all heard, is that, they're going to force people to choose to prevent choosing what to do with your body, but then they argue about wearing a mask. It's just the hypocrisy,
Mhm.
right? And here's the other thing that really astounds me. If someone is genuinely opposed to abortion on moral grounds, I can respect that. If they are also opposed to violence in all its forms, they're opposed to guns, they're opposed to war, they're opposed to
Mhm.
the death penalty, I can respect that as their personal choice.
Mhm.
The problem comes that the vast majority of people who are trying to overturn Roe v. Wade and fight against it also support the death penalty, own guns,
Military
have
interventionists.
have
Yeah.
no problem going to war. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So that to me is hypocritical, and then it doesn't merit respect.
Well, and that's the thing. I always tell people, I'm an atheist, but I don't think my view should be law, right? I don't think it should be illegal to believe in a creator. It's my own personal stance. And
Hmm.
if someone else is left-handed, they shouldn't say, okay, then all right-handed equipment should be converted to left-handed. It's not a sweeping thing. It's for a betterment of society, not forcing your opinion on other people. And that's what I
Right,
have a
right,
real problem with is you don't want an abortion. Hey, I'm not pro-abortion, man. I'm pro-life, real
right.
life, people, humans. I choose my daughter over a zygote.
No one is pro-abortion. It's
No,
a false paradigm that they put up.
absolutely. Hmm.
You're either pro-choice or you're anti-choice.
Yes.
No one is
Hmm.
pro-abortion.
Right.
That's absurd. That's just an absurd
Right. And
argument.
but that's a deep dark well to fall into,
Yeah, it
honestly. But
is.
we all know what it is, man. It's like, just, do you believe that women should have autonomy? Because I've actually proposed this to another person. I say, he's a hardcore conservative his whole life, but I know him. He's a good, decent person, but he's flawed in this belief. And so I told him, I was like, so how about this? If you really want to prevent unwanted pregnancies, get vasectomies for all men, all young men, when they become pubescent, vasectomies.
How did he react to that?
And he's like, well, that's crazy. It's reversible. You can choose. And then when you think you're ready, you have to prove it.
Right.
You have to go to the courts and petition to have it reversed so you can create a life. He goes, no one's going to have kids. It's like, well, what's your goal? Is your goal to make as many paper clips as possible? Right? It can't be a single track thing. It's not simple. It's complicated. And first and foremost, I think that this whole abortion thing, the choice is against HIPAA. It's a HIPAA violation as far as I'm concerned. It's no one's business.
No, it's really not. It's very much a personal. It's a very personal thing, and anyone who has experienced it or who has talked with someone who has gone through the process can tell you that it's emotionally, psychologically, and physically traumatic, and it's nothing that anyone is going to just willy-nilly just jump in and do.
Yeah. Nobody uses it for contraception.
Yeah, exactly.
Want you to think.
And there's been plenty of research that has shown as you increase sex education and the availability of contraception, you vastly decrease the number of unwanted pregnancies. So the irony, of course, is that the same people who want to outlaw abortions also want to outlaw sex ed, and it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't make sense. So
yeah, well, and that's what we're up against is like these. I call them confirmation bias addicts that all they want is to be told that they're right. They don't want to think any harder. That's why I'm the mindful skeptic, because the greatest day is the next time I change my mind. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next day I change my mind because I've got more information and I made an educated change to this decision. I've changed it because I have more information.
Right.
Like before I heard of thorium, I was like, nuclear, Then I talked to the thorium guy, and he convinced me that this is actually doable, and this could be that stopgap that could get us, that could buy us 100 years to where everything is renewable 100% forever. Yeah,
I'm excited to look into it. I really am. So
we shouldn't have a mining company going to an asteroid to mine diamonds or some bullshit or more coal to burn in a furnace and to pollute our planet. Like that's not the fix.
No.
Technology is the future. That's how we fix this thing is tech. We've destroyed our environment with technology. I think we need to fix it with it,
Yeah. It needs to be, I think it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. Absolutely. It's a complicated issue, and we have to, I'm fond of saying you can eat more salad with a fork than you can a single chopstick, right? Which means you need tech, but you also need to the basic R's of the 3 R's of an environment are reduce, reuse, recycle, right? So we need to reduce our consumption. We overconsume horrifically. Each person in the US consumes like 7 planets worth of stuff in their lifetimes. So we need to reduce our consumption. We need to reuse as much as we can and really vamp up recycling as well. So we've got tech, we've got the 3 R's, and then we have to collaborate internationally because we can't do it alone. We have to work as a globe, as a whole. And I think that those, if we pursue all 3 of those, then we have a chance. We really do. We have a chance.
Have you ever heard of the hemp resolution?
I know what hemp is.
So there's a guy on Facebook. He has this page called the Hemp Resolution. It's like a political policy that says it addresses reparations and waste. Replace everything plastic with hemp, period. And those companies should have a percentage. You like to open a bar, you have to apply. To start a hemp business, you have to apply for a license. And he's saying that we could address reparations through a hemp resolution and say, okay, then people opening these business should be a certain percentage, should be minority representation, period. And I like that idea of, because every straw we use is preventable with hemp.
Right.
With paper straws and hemp, metal straws, whatever. That's a big one for me is like clothing.
Yeah, clothing. Hemp is actually super versatile and super strong. So I'm a big supporter of hemp.
Yeah, just so you guys know, if nobody's ever heard of it, go on Facebook. It's called the Hemp Resolutions. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but on TikTok is called POTUS for Us. And he's very, very intelligent guy. And I think that we could be doing some type of, because you said it's like multi-pronged, right? So
Right.
there's legislative stuff,
Mm-hmm.
there's personal choices, activist type of things with
Mm-hmm.
reduction,
Yep.
and then technology, man. Like,
That's right.
yeah, like you said, it's a single chopstick or a multi-pronged fork.
That's right.
Absolutely. But yeah, I implore people to look up thorium because I think that really is the future. Hemp should be on your policy page, as far as I'm concerned, as far as
Yeah.
reducing
Yeah, I'll have
costs.
to look into that. That's a really good suggestion. I'm gonna make a note of that.
I think if we could commit to hemp over
Mm-hmm.
plastic, and that would reduce. And people understand fossil fuels, plastics, they go together.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that, but plastic is basically oil and petroleum in a different form. That's
Yep.
you're literally, it's basically petroleum products.
Mm-hmm. If we get, and again, we reduce consumption, which would bring down the cost,
Yes.
which would bring down demand. All those go together. I love it. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to Doctor. Almost said Doctor. I was going to say Major Richard Ojeda for shouting you out in the last stream to come
Yeah.
talk to
Very
you.
cool.
I enjoyed talking to you. Is there anything you want to kind of leave people with some parting words? Oh yeah, sorry guys, I almost forgot one thing. The very first comment in here, guys, is her donation links. If you guys want to help support, she's up against a $3.39 million coffer of an incumbent. And we all know how hard that is to win an election against an incumbent, period. And then, of course, volunteers. I'm sure you need some more volunteers for phone banking, text banking, graphics people, whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
Go. There's a volunteer tab on the website. Let's go back up here. So where to go?
Yeah.
Volunteer, guys. There's a tab right
Yeah.
there.
So we are not phone banking or door knocking yet because for folks who don't know, Virginia has an off year election cycle. Virginia, New Jersey, the only ones. So in 2021, Virginia has a governor's election. We have governor, lieutenant governor, um, what's hearing running, attorney general, and several house districts. So what that means is that right now everybody is focused on the 2021 election, and I got to tell you, it's a real battle. People think it's going to be a cakewalk, but I think it's going to be really close. I'm a little concerned, to be really honest. I'm concerned Virginia may go the way of Texas. People are very focused on it, and they need to be focused on it. Our staff and our team is also incredibly focused on making sure that we can support that race. There are, I believe, 100 House seats that are currently up in 2021 in Virginia. So it's a big deal. So we are not right now phone banking or door knocking. We plan to hit the ground hard in January. So if you're into that stuff, please hit us up then during the holidays so that we can get everything set up. What we really need now, honestly, and it's horrible, and I wish we had publicly funded campaigns, but we don't. We need money right now. We don't, with everything that's been going on in progressive politics, donors who normally give they're not giving much. And we really need to raise funds. We want to raise funds so that we can purchase voter data. The state charges $7,300 for it. That's our immediate goal for this week is $7,300. And then we want to start getting money in because we want to do mailers. We want to be able to do direct mail to targeted voters in this district. We're going to need about $150,000 for that. And then there's a few other things that we need as well. We also need volunteers who can help with, just different activities, websites and that kind of stuff. We actually lost half our staff when school started. So we're a little light on staff, although we're building back up. We've already got a graphics person in and other folks, and we're excited about that. So people are really excited about our campaign, and we're happy for that. But the biggest thing you can do now is donate whatever you can. $5, $50 if you've got it, 500, 1,000. And like I said, over the holidays, if you're into phone banking and text banking and door knocking, please hit us up then, because we're gonna really need just a massive number of volunteers to really hit the doors in a very truncated period of time.
Yeah. And what is your election date for your primary?
It is June 21st.
June 21st.
And
So
early voting starts 45 days before that, which is, I don't remember what the date is, but we really want
first
to
week of
make,
May.
yeah, it's for somewhere in the first week of May. But I think what we really want to make sure we're doing is that by March, we are hitting every door. Like, we want to have every door hit by March so we can start again and then hit all the doors again.
Yeah.
And that's really our goal.
Well, that's a very short window.
It's a short window.
It's a 6-month campaign pretty much in that regard as far as ground troops.
Right.
But again, guys, that's why the incumbents stack the deck to favor them. They put every hurdle they can think of to make it as frustrating as possible, to frustrate people like her and the rest of us to not run. Don't even try. You only got 6 months. Get real. It can be done. It has been done, and it will happen again. So why not now, and why not Allie? Period. That's how I see it. And so that's, guys, again, she has a lot of policies on her page. I'm a policy wonk. I'd love to sit here and go through every policy with her. I'd love to do that. But time is money, right? So, but do it. Go upon yourselves, guys. Go check out all her policies, and then let us know when you update it.
I will.
Put it out there in a tweet, and we'll let people know. Hey, man, check out the new updates.
Thorium and hemp.
Yeah, there you go, man. It's all environmental there, and that's kind of your wheelhouse. Like you said, we need more scientists.
We do.
In our representation.
Not a single one in Congress right now.
Yeah, we have Rand Paul, who says, I'm a physician. He's an optometrist. No shade on optometrists, but most eye doctors won't say I'm a physician.
No.
And I know everything about vaccines. Like, I mean, it's a whole different thing. We need real scientists. And I hate to say it like that, but actual people have educated themselves on this stuff. And, again, we need more women. We need more scientists. We need more progressives. And not accepting corporate money is huge litmus test to me. And most people, I believe, now are sick and tired of the corporate donors.
Yeah.
They decide everything for us. So we got to make that shit stop.
Yeah.
And also, you're a veteran, so thank you for your service, of course. Air Force veteran, right?
No. I actually worked on the civilian side. I didn't serve in the military.
That's right.
I supported the troops by making sure they had, unencumbered lands in which to train, test, and operate, basically.
Oh, see, I didn't. I think I read that wrong about you got some award from the Air Force.
I did. I received several awards from various military services and departments. I just listed a few of them. But I did receive conservation awards because here's what I did that folks hadn't done before, and certainly my predecessor did not do, and that was I brought the land managers together with military headquarters people together with the operational side, so that we could find policies that provided benefit in a way that wasn't hindering each other. Does that make sense? So, for example, I'll just give you this quick example because I know we got to wrap up, but let's say you have to do a prescribed burn because you want to prevent a forest fire. So you have a clear, beautiful day and you have a prescribed burn. Well, guess what? That clear, beautiful day is also the day where you need to do your low-level training flights so that you can get your pilots trained. So what do, right? Do you do the burn or do you do the flight? So that's just one instance. And I got to tell you, shout out to military land managers. They are the most dedicated biologists ever. They're fabulous and amazing. They work incredible hours, and they are truly, truly concerned with the responsibility that DoD has through the Sykes Act for stewarding the nation's land on behalf of the American people. It's a big deal, and I think we lost sight of that during the last administration. But it's something folks on the ground did not lose sight of. So that's the kind of thing that I helped enable, and fortunately was successful, and people were nice and gave me awards for it. So that's always nice.
Well, so guys, make sure you follow her on Twitter at Allie for the number 4 Congress. And to end on a good note, Allie's got my vote. There it is.
Awesome.
It's how do you eat an elephant, guys? One bite at a time. So how do you win an election? One vote at a time, So that's what we got to do. Do anything you guys can. Share. Again, follow her on Twitter. I know Twitter isn't the real world, but it does make a difference. That people name recognition matters. And so if we can help retweet and boost some of her posts about her campaign stuff, we can at least do that. If you don't have time or money, you can at least do the simple things. And just help any way you guys can. Again, thank you for your time, Allie. I wish you
Thank
the best of
you.
luck. I'll be checking back in with you next year, probably when you get running.
Excellent.
Hit the ground running. We'll bring it back, and I'd like to bring on. That's something we work on in the future is to get all the women of DC candidates in one panel. We can just talk about how we need more women
Love
representing
that.
this country holistically. Like we need more women representation at every level, including CEOs, entrepreneurs, everything. Right. So, yeah, I'll double back with you on that for sure.
All right, cool.
Right.
I very much enjoyed being here, boys. Thank you.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
All right, guys. You guys take care and make sure you go